It's important for educators to be able to acquire the practices that enable them to keep kids in learning environments without having to remove them to some other setting. Because the problems that emerge when that happens is kids often lose instructional time, as well as that it could potentially harm or hinder a relationship that is being developed. And once we lose kids' relationship and sense of belonging, it's harder to engage them in the academics. So the method to keep kids in the classroom is the PROMPT method, and that's just an acronym that stands for the progressive sequence of practices that a teacher or another educator could deliver in order to respond effectively to a child's problem behavior. The first one is proximity, and that is first knowing that most kids engage in behaviors that aren't really problems, they just happen to be annoying or irritating in the environment. So often you don't even have to address the issue, just you need to be close by the student, and that's enough to correct their behavior, and that's often way more successful than potentially yelling at the child, issuing a threat, and all those things could actually harm relationships or actually provoke more challenging behavior out of the student. Then R in PROMPT is redirection. Redirection is you're trying to break up the episode of a potential problem behavior, get the kid under instructional control by issuing an instruction to actually engage in a different activity briefly and come back to the task at hand. So a redirection could be instructionally relevant. For example, if a kid's supposed to be writing an essay, I could ask the student to go to another peer and find a couple of words that that peer is using that they could use in their own writing. So it can be instructionally relevant, or it can be non-instructionally relevant. If I have a squirrely kid who I know needs to move, my redirection is going to involve some level of movement. I'm going to ask the student to go get something for me and bring it back. So they're actually going to get out of their seated area, go potentially grab a coffee mug, go grab some type of academic resource, bring it back to me, and then I'm going to get them back to work. So again, it's conceptualizing that the student's problem behavior isn't a major problem, and you want to make sure you're skillfully responding to the student to break up the episode of the behavior and get them back on track. The ongoing monitoring piece is really about paying more attention to what the peers are doing than the target student is exhibiting the problem. So often you can correct other people's behaviors by reinforcing the peers who are doing what you want the target student to do. And this capitalizes on social learning. So you don't even have to go address the target student, and instead you can go recognize and acknowledge the peers for doing what you want the target student to do, and that can serve to correct the behavior. The P in PROMPT is provide a verbal prompt. And a prompt is just another way of saying an effective command. And essentially you would want to, in a private, non-threatening way, tell the kid what to do. Not warn the kid or indicate what they need to stop doing. It's telling the kid precisely what you want them to do to comply. And so effective commands are statements. They're not questions. So we don't say, would you like to start reading now? We tell them what we want them to do. They are one command at a time. They're not multiple strands of commands, and we hope that the child complies with them all. And that they're positively stated and not negatively stated. So you can imagine through these potential sequence, you can select a strategy to use to correct the student's problem behavior. None of them are about like publicly issuing a threat or doing something to publicly acknowledge the kid's role violating behavior. The last part of PROMPT is the teaching interaction, and this is perhaps the most skillful part of the whole procedure, and this is viewing the problem behavior as an opportunity for a teachable moment. Rather than something that you're annoyed with, you look at it as an opportunity that the kid actually can learn something from this problem behavior, to learn how to better respond to the environment in a way that is more conducive to kind of an orderly and productive learning environment. So the way in which we work with students in a teaching interaction is you have to begin that with a skillful empathy statement. And the empathy statement is your lead in to the conversation to both remind the kid what to do as well as set a limit for the inappropriate behavior. And I'll go over more what that teaching interaction looks like.